What's up, Central? I'm Jumil, and welcome to today's movie review. Now, if you're a big fan of horror and comedy, then this movie's for you because it's a mix of both. Today we're going to be reviewing the horror comedy Tusk. Disclaimer before we get into this movie review. This is a pretty disturbing film, so those of you who can't take guts and flesh well, then I advise you to proceed with caution. But before we get into why it is very disturbing, let's just get into some details about the movie, the cast, directors, and when it was a film. Tusk was a film released in 2014 and has a 5.3 out of 10 rating on IMDb, which is not the worst rating you can get, but also it just depends on your point of view and what you're drawn to. Because me personally, I found the movie a good 9 out of 10. As for the cast, we have pretty big actors such as Justin Long, who is well known for his roles in Alvin and the Chipmunk, playing the iconic Alvin, and also a new movie that recently came out, last year, 2022, Barbarian, and also his role in Jeepers Creepers and much more. He plays Wallace in Tusk, which is the main protagonist and the one who we follow throughout the entire movie. And we also have Johnny Depp in there, which in the movie you can't really tell it's Johnny Depp because he's some kind of like detective that looks nothing like himself. We also have Haley Joel. Hope I didn't butcher his name, but he's also a great actor, known for his parts in Forrest Gump and also Tusk. But with that being said, there's not really much of the cast that's like the main protagonist, because really throughout the story we only follow Haley and Justin Long. But with that being said, let's get into Tusk. As the movie begins, we're introduced to two protagonists, which are Wallace, played by Justin Long, and Teddy, played by Haley Joel. Both of them are friends, and basically they have a podcast which they talk about trending topics and bizarre things that's happening, which really stand out to the audience, talking about some incident that happened. And it was about some kid who he was making a video with a lifesaver, if I'm not mistaken, or a machete or some sort of weapon, and ends up cutting off a limb. So they found this story interesting, funny. They decided they wanted to, interview the kid and get to know him and stuff, because who's out of their mind enough to play around with a weapon and cut a limb off? Wallace flies out to Canada to meet with the young man, and as he arrives, finds out that the kid actually died. So therefore, their story's dead. He doesn't know what to do. He's in Canada, not knowing anything about the place he's in, and doesn't have a story, which was the whole entire idea and reason why he went to Canada. He decides to hit a pub, try to figure things out. So when he's in the pub, he uses the bathroom, he looks up, and there's a board of flyers. He's just skimming through the flyers and stuff, and he notices one that says, if you want to hear about my story, and come meet up with me, contact me. When he calls, the phone is answered by famous actor Michael Parks, played as Howard Hope in the film Tusk. Now, as the movie is leading up to this moment where he finds a story he's looking for as an alternative, and he goes to the old man, which at this point in the movie I find kind of weird, for you to willingly go to a stranger's house, stranger danger, red flags. Throughout his stay, he learns more about the old man and his past, and basically the old man talks about how he was on a ship. If ship sunk, he was stranded in the ocean, and a walrus saved him. In order to survive, he had to eat the walrus. Wallace, he thinks the story is great. He thinks it's gonna pull in an audience, more views, and the old man is kind of weird. And as the viewer, you can also tell that this dude's not telling the full story. Wallace and him had a drink, and Wallace ends up knocking out. Now, this is because the old man drugged him. The old man starts to reveal his true identity. And it turns out he has a much darker side than it seems. He's not just old man with a past. He's kind of psychotic and creepy now. as to this point in the movie, and we learn he's trying to turn Wallace into a walrus that saved his life because he feels, I guess you could say, guilty that he ate the creature. While this is happening, Teddy realizes that, he's not picking up his phone. He's gone. Also, his girlfriend noticing this too, and they're worried. So he ends up just heading over to Canada and trying to figure out where he's at because he's missing, going to the locals and everybody asking if they seen him. Time is of the essence. So the old man created a way to turn him into a walrus. Literally turns him into quote unquote walrus, which he really is just using flesh from people or other things, and he's just stitching them together, turning him to like this big blob of flesh shaped into a walrus. But after he turns him into a walrus, the old man starts telling Wallace he has to act like one too. So therefore, like, his humanity is gone. Like, he's not human anymore. He's just over here being forced to turn into a walrus. He's telling him he gotta swim like a walrus, eat like a walrus, act like a walrus, this and that, the third. As Teddy is looking for him and his girlfriend, they find a detective in Canada, also Johnny Depp, and they end up, finding clues, and it leads up to the old man in his house. And as they're there, towards the end, they just find it weird, how the old man's being, he's really suspicious, and they end up finding Wallace. And when they find Wallace, once they see this, their faces go pale, and they're just horrified. The ending is what really messed me up, because you would think they find a solution to bring him back human or something like that. Wallace has been traumatized to the point where he literally thinks he's a walrus now and acts like one. So they didn't know what to do. They ended up they didn't know if to take him with them home or what to do. And the story ends off of Wallace being ended up in a zoo. But it's also sentimental, because it's how do you feel for this dude? But he's a walrus, you know what I mean? But yeah, the movie's pretty messed up, and I really suggest you watch it. Kevin Smith really did his thing with this movie, because you wouldn't really expect a movie about somebody turning somebody else into walrus, which really catches the eye and what really made this movie stand out. So with that being said, that's Tusk. I hope you enjoy.